Greetings, adventurers! I see you are taking your first steps into the magical game of Flesh and Blood, so allow me to welcome you to the world of Wraith and teach you what you need to know on how to play Flesh and Blood. In Flesh and Blood, you take on the role of one of two heroes locked in a brutal battle. To begin, you select one of the many heroes available within the world of Wraith. These heroes span multiple classes and talents, each with their own unique abilities. Once we have our hero selected, we get our equipment together and put together a deck which represents the way in which we are going to crush our opponents or defend ourselves from their blows. Before we begin playing, we need to go over what we need in order for us to start. In Flesh and Blood, there are two main formats one can build their deck towards, which are Classic Constructed, which uses a 60 card deck, and the older hero version, which usually is 40 life, and Blitz, which has a deck of 40 cards and uses the younger version of the hero, which tend to be 20 life or less. You will know if a hero is young by looking for the young keyword located on the bottom of the card. Now that we know what the size of our deck can be, it'll be very important to know what the different card types are and what we may include in our deck. First, let's look at a hero card in Flesh and Blood and what they mean for our deck. As mentioned before, the key difference between the hero cards of the same name is the young keyword found here, and our starting life total here. The blue number is called Intellect, and it represents our hand size, the cards we will draw up to at the end of our turn. Hero cards can be separated by what class they fall under, and further so by their talents, which are shown here. One may only include cards in their deck that match the class and or talent of their hero unless they are generic. Here is a weapon card. All classes in Flesh and Blood have access to at least one, if not more. As you can see, this is a two-handed sword, meaning you can only wield this single weapon since it takes up both weapon slots. It is also a Runeblade weapon, meaning it can be used by any of the Runeblade characters in the game. The yellow spear here represents our weapon attack value, or how much damage it can deal if it hits. In the text box here is its cost to attack and its ability. These are all equipment cards, which you can only have 4 of on the field at a time, one for each slot of the head, chest, arms, and legs. Equipment shares all the same defining characteristics such as a name up at top, what class and talent they are or if generic, and what slot they are for. The defense value for equipment is indicated by the number next to the gray shield here. Any abilities will be listed in the center text box. Now we will take a look at action cards. Action cards will take up the vast majority of the decks you build, so knowing how they work is incredibly important. We will look at what the different parts of them mean. The way to know if a card is an action is by checking the bottom part of the card, which will say what class and or talent it is for, or if it is generic. Action cards will take up a single action point in order to be played, which we begin the turn with one of. Like the weapons and equipment, certain actions such as attack actions have attack and defense values located in the same places as the previously mentioned cards. These cards go to the combat chain when used to attack or defend. To play cards and activate abilities, we will have to pay a resource cost, which can be found here. In order to pay this cost, we have to pitch cards from our hand. The pitch value of a card can be seen here, represented by these dots, or can be quickly determined by looking at the color strip here at the top, with red producing 1, yellow producing 2, and blue producing 3. Lastly, for cards you can find in any deck are reaction cards, which are divided into attack reactions and defense reactions. These cards can only be played at specific points in a turn. There are other card types in Flesh and Blood, but those others can depend on what hero you are wanting to build and do not apply to all decks. Now that we know what the parts of a card are and how to play cards, we should look at a keyword you will see countless times on your journey through Wraith. That is, Go Again. Go Again is a keyword that means once this card resolves, gain 1 action point. This allows you to play multiple actions in a turn. Once we have that covered, let's suit up for battle and take a look at how we actually engage in combat with our opponent. The battlefield of Flesh and Blood looks like this, with your hero in the middle, the weapon or weapons being placed on either side, your equipment on the left in the positions here, on the right is your deck, pitch, graveyard, and your banish zones. The combat chain is at the top of the battlefields where you'll play your attack actions, reactions, and defense reactions. The final zone below your hero is the arsenal, where you may place a card down at the end of your turn. The order of a turn consists of resolving beginning of turn effects, using your action point, arsenaling a card from hand, move your pitch cards to the bottom of your deck, and then drawing up to your hand size indicated by your hero's intellect. And a key rule is, at the end of the first turn only, both players draw up to their maximum hand size. Now that we've gone over all of that, let's play through a turn so you can see what that looks like. So, I'll start by drawing up to my hand size, which will be 4 cards, and for this, I'm playing the Dromai Blitz deck. Every character will be somewhat different, but alright, we'll start. We have 1 action point, so I'm going to go ahead and start off by pitching a red Critical Strike for 1 resource, so that I can play a Dunebreaker Senpai for 1, and it has Go Again. So, after it resolves, I will then gain an action point. So, we'll now use that action point, pitch a red, in order to play a Billowing Mirage. So we have, which also has Go Again. We have no other cards in our hand. Now, if we're playing as the character, we'd use the abilities and all of that. But just to show how this works, we have that to do. And realistically, that would be end of the turn. If they blocked, whatever, end of our turn, goes to the bottom, and I will then draw up to my hand size. And pass to the opponent. Now let's pretend that our opponent chose to block our Dunebreaker Senpai with, say, a red Sink Below, which has a value of 4. So they would prevent 4 of our 5 damage, so they would take 1. And then we would proceed to the next chain link. Now we'll see how to use the Arsenal Zone right here and when we use it. So, we played through our turn, and we decided there's nothing else we'd really like to do at this moment. So, we can then take a card from our hand, for example, a defense reaction or attack reaction, or any other card, and place that face down in the arsenal. We then draw up to our hand size, and then pass turn over to our opponent. Now we'll be going over how to use attack and defense reactions. Our opposing chain has used Galaxy Black and has met its criteria to get +2 attack by playing a card from its Banish Zone. We are now on the blocking step, so we are going to block with, from hand, a Sweeping Blow to block all 3 of it, as it has a defense value of 3. After blockers have been declared, it then goes to the reaction step, and our opponent then chooses to use a Razor Reflex to give +3 to target sword attack, bringing it up to a 6. It'll then go over to us to use a defense reaction if we'd like to, and in this case, we will use a Sink Below to then come in for another 4 to prevent all of the damage if we wanted to. So there you go. You're well equipped with the information you need to take on your local armory. I hope you found this helpful, and if you did, maybe leave a like, comment, or even subscribe, as it helps me out a ton. If you want to know more about something in particular, then leave a comment and I'll try to help. Anyways, that is all from me. Farewell, adventurers, and enjoy your time in Wraith.